First tonight, though, a new weight loss pill that involves swallowing a capsule containing a balloon that inflates inside the stomach has been introduced on the NHS. Now, it works by making patients feel fuller so they eat less.
So this is the swallowable balloon. Most people will swallow this no problems with a glass of water. Once it reaches the stomach, we do an X-ray to make sure it's in the right spot. There's a little catheter coming out of their mouth, and then at the end of this we connect to a bag of fluid. That fluid that then gets released through the catheter, goes into the capsule, which then opens up as this balloon.
So far, 2 people have been given the pill by a trust in Somerset, with dozens more treatments scheduled. Experts say it's highly effective, with patients losing 10 to 15% of their body weight within the first 4 months. Now, it's a 15-minute procedure that does not require surgery or anaesthesia. Obesity costs the NHS a whopping £6 billion a year, and that is set to rise to nearly £10 billion by 2050. Look, none of us would be necessarily volunteering to have that unless you had a serious medical condition, which obesity is a really serious medical condition, both for the individual and for the country at large, whether that's the cost of the NHS, the cost of the labour market, the cost of children's health, all the rest of it. You know, we all know the arguments. Personally, I think, great, anything that can help this, particularly if it's cheaper for the NHS. You know, we know that bariatric surgery, stomach stapling, all of those different methods are very expensive, very dangerous, and often reversible. So I think, great, as long as that is alongside a proper obesity schedule, proper obesity policies. But that's the bit I think the government's letting us down on.
I just think this is absolutely ridiculous. Instead of the easiest way to lose weight, and this is not rocket science.
It's not the easiest way, JJ.
The easiest way to lose weight
and most sustainable.
And the most sustainable is to have a better diet and lots of exercise. People who say, I go and see a nutritionist, I have a personal trainer. You know what? If you walked 5 miles a day and you only ate vegetables, and they weren't deep fat fried vegetables, the vegetables you've boiled or steamed, you would lose weight naturally. Because you go to Africa, developing world, we don't have people with, they've just got the fat gene. There's loads of fat people walking around. You don't have it. You go to the Western world where it's greed has consumed us. You want to order food?
A lot of that is ultra-processed food.
Yeah,
rather,
exactly.
In the different Mediterranean, African, Western diets.
But you want to order food? Just do it on your phone, do it on your app. Everything has become easy and people have become lazier. This is another lazy way to get people to lose weight faster because they lack the discipline.
It's not proactive, it's reactive. We're waiting for people to get to the size of, like, excuse me, basically a woolly mammoth before we actually do something about it. At the end of the day, we know that diet and exercise is what keeps obesity at bay. I would actually go further and say I actually think these people should pay for it themselves, out of pocket. I think certain lifestyle-related medical issues should be paid for out of pocket because people only get proactive with their own healthcare if they have to pay for it. And there are many studies from various developed countries around the world that attest to this. You do not get to eat yourself into the size of Wembley Stadium and expect me to pick up the bill. Obesity is not like addiction to drugs.
You're picking the bill up anyway,
No,
Esther.
but we shouldn't. Obesity is not like addiction to drugs, right? The problem is your jaw doesn't close, and I shouldn't have to foot the bill for that. I think if we're going to make this miraculous medical, transformation or whatever happen, they should have to pay for it themselves. That's all I'm saying.
Ed, would you take
Obesity is
it?
one of the biggest killers in the Western world now. A lot of people do eat ultra-processed food, but it's everywhere. It's almost impossible to avoid. You're asking people to lead a lifestyle that's completely unrealistic. I'm sure you're at home chopping your vegetables and frying it in Mediterranean olive oil imported from Tuscany. Most people don't lead the JJ lifestyle. I would take it tomorrow. I've always been overweight. I don't like the fact I've got a belly. I hate my moobs. Give me the ball, I'll swallow it immediately. I'm on statins. I have seen no problem in being on statins. I'm on high blood pressure pills. I've had a Zempic. I'm going to have the whole caboodle. It's about staying alive.
Can I just say,
alive.
I think we're lucky that Ed's even with us tonight.
I know.
It is a miracle thanks to modern science. When I started taking statins, you think when you start taking statins, oh, my cholesterol's bad, that's a terrible thing. I'm somehow a failure because of my lifestyle. The GP said to me, statins are the only, and I'm not giving medical advice here, are the only life-extending drug ever invented. I tell all my friends over a certain age, over the age of 50, go on statins regardless of what.
Tell them to exercise,
Less
make
Exactly.
it healthier.
Tell them to get a subscription to Pure Gym.
Yeah.
That's better.
Oh, okay. You know,
but
you can
but
lead
both-
your
both
media
of you are
lifestyle, going to the gym,
It's not-
eating in the fancy restaurants, but most people can't do
If you
that.
tell an overweight person to exercise, it makes zero difference to their
that's
to their
their
weight.
weight.
It's completely outdated science. It's
Exactly.
provably wrong. Calories, yes, and even calories are now very disputed. Exercise will help you live longer. They will make you fit. They
Yes.
will not
That's
make you
exactly
thin.
right. That's
Wait,
It
exactly
doesn't
right.
work.
And
It's
this is all
outdated
about.
science.
This is all about, and you should be interested in this, Mr. Taxpayer. Self-interest. If you get people to lose weight, they're going to cost the NHS less in the long run.
Here's the thing.
This is a
no,
short,
but Ed, I'm not talking
very cost-free procedure. that
I'm
will-
no longer talking about the cure. I'm talking about prevention. So you say Mediterranean vegetables. I go to Tesco and I buy a 3 for 2 pack of microwavable vegetables.
Yeah.
I put it in the microwave, I get it out, and I eat it with a bit of
protein
salt.
or something.
Yeah,
Exactly.
and I've got fish fingers, I've got a bit of cod, whatever. It's not expensive to eat healthy. What is lacking is discipline. And if you start kids off eating
Thank
well
you.
and
What
teach
is-
kids how to cook easier,
Look,
then they don't become fat
okay,
adults. And we haven't got to then
Yes,
come up with a
agreed.
cure
All right.
to solve people for being obese.
I am I'm completely on the fence on this because I know exactly what Ed is saying. I've
What?
got this issue in my
You've never been on the fence about anything.
I am.
Ian.
I know, Ed. I know it's unusual. Esther, you're very, very evangelical about this, but I've seen you fluctuate a bit over the last couple
Oh,
of months.
absolutely
I
not.
jest.
She is tight right.
No, but the point is that, yes, of course, in theory, exercise, and we all know that, right? You're right. I agree with it. However, we don't live in this amazing utopian world of perfect health and abs and goodness knows what else. There's lots of reasons why people overeat.
there isn't.
There's many reasons. There's also
the jaw doesn't close.
There's the addiction. I'm glad you're not a doctor.
What are you
Goodness me.
talking about?
You imagine going to see
There's no
Dr.
doctor.
Esther.
Imagine.
Dr.
about
Esther,
bedside
I've got a weight
care.
problem. Get out, you fat bear. Come on, that would be what Dr. Esther would
And
dispense.
also, some people, two people can eat exactly the same thing and one will put on.
There's also that as well, metabolism, all sorts of other issues. Broadly, I'm kind of in the JJ camp, but I do know that some people struggle with it. There's an addiction element to it. There's a thing called armouring up, which is sort of psychology where people put on the pounds for lots of reasons. Even domestic violence comes into this, for goodness sake. There's loads and loads of issues around this. And you're right. I mean, diabetes alone,
Yes,
driven,
that's the
could
key.
bankrupt the
But it's
NHS in the
incredible
next
that
10 years.
we're happy to make
So-
so many excuses for why people are obese, but not why people
Yeah,
are
but it's
alcoholics,
among us. It's
which
there.
is effectively the
If
same
somebody
thing.
says,
the,
right,
the,
we
the
can go on-
NHS spends as much money
Esther,
on these types of lifestyle-related illnesses as they do on addictions.
Here's the problem, though. Yes, and there is an issue around that. If the NHS, if you were faced with the proposal, proposal number one is we go on a 10-year programme to encourage more people down to the gym or into the local park if you haven't got membership, or swallow this balloon.
But it's not an either or. So
I know it's not an either or.
Exactly.
I'm
But
saying
the point is it
swallow
will-
the
it
balloon,
will
but
save
by
money.
all means, I'm in favour of the sugar tax. By all means, encourage healthy eating. I'm in favour of teaching kids how to cook at school. I'm in favour. I would invest billions in healthy eating at schools. I totally agree with you. Get them young. Inculcate great eating habits early on, and 50 years down the line, our great-grandchildren might well be living in a world where you don't need to swallow a balloon.
That's exactly right. I mean, the number of, so our children, 60% of their diet is ultra-processed food.
Yeah.
That is why our children are so fat. And it's not just because they're higher in calories, they're addictive. And yes, I know it's not the same as being an alcoholic, but once your taste buds are used to that ultra-processed, very sugary, very salty, instant hit, it's very difficult to wean those kids off. And a fat 3-year-old is going to be a fat teenager, is going to be a fat adult. So that, there are so many interventions that need to happen.
There are 3,000 obesity-related admissions to hospital in this country every single day.
And you don't want the fat balloon.
But no, I don't want the fat balloon, because if we were talking about people smoking cigarettes, we wouldn't say, right, people are getting lung cancer and smoking cigarettes. How can we allow people to keep on smoking cigarettes but also make a cure for them that's going to...
But that's not what you're saying.
But
You're
the
not
thing
saying
you do, you give them
less.
nicotine gum.
nicotine gum, which is completely different to...
You don't say
on the
stop
NHS.
smoking tomorrow because you recognise it's an addiction.
You pull them off, exactly, but then we don't put in something invasive in their body that's going to facilitate them to lose weight in the short term and then put it back on a year later, because that's what it does.
You know what's missing in this conversation? Personal responsibility.
Yes.
It's actually okay to say to someone, you are fat because of what you eat. You are fat,
Yes,
but
but they're gonna
and it
cost
is
you money,
your
Esther.
fault. And it is your fault. And you should take responsibility for it.
But Esther,
They are, they're swallowing a
Esther,
balloon.
the person who swallows the balloon still has to eat less. They're not allowed to pig themselves
Yeah,
and
they
have the
can't.
balloon. So they are going to be on a
I
diet.
don't have a
They're going
problem
to
with
be
that.
losing
They
weight.
should just pay for it. That is my issue. They
How
should
much
just
does a
pay for
balloon
it.
cost anyway? This can't
It's
be the
very
most
cheap.
expensive.
Well,
It can't be the most
exactly.
expensive food. Yeah.
It could be cheaper.
It's not a pharmaceutical, it's not a surgical
I have no problem
procedure.
with that whatsoever. Just pay for it yourself.
But ultimately, everyone who pays tax is already technically paying for the obesity stuff, right? So I can't really say if you're really fat, you should pay for it yourself, because if you're paying tax,
No, I just like dental stuff is
I
covered.
think Lord Vaizey's right. The government can do more.
I'm the government.
The government, Lord Vaizey, they can do more to make things like fast food harder to come by.
We've never
You
had
can't
more
have
advice,
buy one,
JJ.
get
We've
one
never
free.
had more advice on keeping fit, staying slim, daytime TV shows, apps, magazines,
No, I do
celebrity
think-
endorsements. That fella called Joe that does
In
his
20 years-
exercises, who writes books.
In 20
him.
years' time, we may well look at the food manufacturers as we look at tobacco now. The ultra-processed food point that Daisy is making, that is definitely a battle worth having.
And so much of the advice that we have been swallowing, pardon the pun, over the last 20 years has come from research done by food companies. You know, whether it's saying, oh, you know, you must have breakfast because that's really unhealthy not to have breakfast. That was complete BS created by Kellogg's and other breakfast manufacturers. You know, you must give your child vitamin C and therefore give them a glass of orange juice. Incredibly damaging advice that was absolute rubbish on the vitamin C thing, created by orange juice manufacturers. And now our teeth, you know, our kids have rotten teeth, and a lot of the weight they've put on has been because of
But the
these
thing
so-called healthy drinks like Sunny Delight
Sunny
or whatever it
D,
was,
it's
that,
lost
that
tasty,
have
though.
created.
I mean,
you know,
I
yet more
appreciate
problems.
that the marketing can be incredibly compelling, but we're not mindless sheep, right? If Kellogg's is telling you, oh, you must eat breakfast and you must buy our products so you can have that healthy, nutritious breakfast, again, it's on you to research the validity of that. This is why I say, and again, I keep going back to the funding of this, just like we have a hybrid private-public model with NHS when it comes to dental care, I think we should have that when it comes to obesity-related illnesses. And I think that would make a massive dent in people actually being proactive in what they eat and how they lead their lives.
Yeah, the trouble is that obese people tend to be very miserable and
I
need
would be
some
too,
help.
but
And lacking
I would be
discipline.
even more miserable if I was broke.